We're here today with Chief Justice John Kemp of the Judiciary of Arkansas in the United States to talk about public outreach. Thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us today for our podcast series. We're very excited, as I mentioned, about the new Judicial Conduct and Ethics training site in Arkansas. Before we get started, could you please tell us a little bit about your professional background?
I'm currently serving as Chief Justice of the Arkansas Supreme Court. I was elected to that position in a statewide election in 2016. Took office in 2017, so I've served now for 3 years. Prior to that, I served for 30 years as a trial court judge in the circuit courts, which is a court of general jurisdiction. And prior to that, I served for 9.5 years as a municipal court judge, which deals with traffic offenses and misdemeanor small claims. Mm-hmm. So my judicial career consists of 42 years total, which is hard to believe.
So we wanted to talk with you mainly about public outreach. We noticed that your court is doing a lot of things related to public outreach and engaging with the community. We read your strategic plan for the next 5 years for the Arkansas Judiciary. What types of activities do you have in this strategic plan?
One of the things we do is providing citizens with necessary information and resources so that they can navigate in the legal system and the court system. For example, we're working with the legal community to emphasize the need of pro bono services for individuals who cannot afford to hire an attorney. Our state is one of the most underserved states in the nation when it comes to access to legal services. Another initiative involves working to ensure that people with limited English proficiency have the proper resources to participate in our court system so that they can receive fair and equal access to justice. And, of course, Arkansas has a large Hispanic population, but also we've got the largest Marshallese population in the United States. So we provide interpretive services for the Marshallese so that they can participate and understand the legal system. Public education is also a key. We're committed to fostering public civic awareness so that people can become engaged citizens. And because we believe that if the public understands the court system and how it works, then they can have more positive interactions with the court system. Mm-hmm. And that can hopefully build up public trust in the court system. Another important area we focus on is technology. We are trying to embrace technology to improve not only accessibility to the courts, but also produce the productivity of the courts as well, and foster effective communications with the court and the public. Because we believe, an informed citizenry is going to be beneficial to the public in general, to have more knowledge about our court system.
So you mentioned that public outreach is included, and that you were trying to improve public trust. Is that a challenge that you were dealing with before, or what kind of pushed you to include public outreach in this strategic plan?
One of my pet peeves is the lack of civics education. Mm-hmm. I think some recent studies, one from the Annenberg Center, indicates that only 2 out of 5 citizens can name the 3 branches of government. And we want to develop a program. We have a courts and community program we've instituted where we've developed a program for judges where they can go out into the communities to civic organizations and to school groups and explain how our court system works and hopefully give a better understanding for the students and the civic group participants how our court system works. So that was something we had a goal. We've got 75 counties in Arkansas. Our goal was to have at least one presentation in each county, and we accomplished that in 2019. Another program we have we call Appeals on Wheels. Mm-hmm. And twice a year The Arkansas Supreme Court goes out into cities around the state and conducts a real-life case, conducts oral argument. Usually we do that in a high school or a college, invite the students and also members of the community to attend and observe that appeals process. And then following that proceeding, we'll get the students in small groups, and each justice then will visit with that small group and answer any questions they've got about our court system. And just this past year, we met in conjunction with the Texas Supreme Court in Texarkana, which is a border city. And one day we had proceedings for the Arkansas Supreme Court at Arkansas High School, the next day at Texas High School. And it gave the students an opportunity to see the courts in operation, and it gave the public an opportunity to see what differences each Supreme Court does in each state, because there are some differences, and I think that was important to show that.
You mentioned that your goal was to have one presentation per county. What kind of attendance do you have for these presentations? Are there a lot of people who attend?
Well, usually, like I say, it's civics organizations, Lions Clubs, Kiwanis, Rotaries. So there may be, 20, 30, 40 people in attendance at a lunch meeting or a breakfast meeting. The school groups, usually it's one class. It may be anywhere from 20 to 40 or 50 students. And, opportunity to make the presentation on, basically our system of government, 3 branches of government, but primarily focus on the judiciary and explain, more fully about how the courts work.
And what inspired you to focus on students when educating the community about the work of the judiciary?
Well, I had an experience whenever I was a freshman in college. I had a traffic accident, and I just felt helpless in not knowing what my legal rights were. And that really motivated me to go to law school. And so I think it's important that students have an understanding what their legal rights are. So I share that experience with a lot of school groups and college groups to let them know that there's nothing wrong and nothing unusual about not being that knowledgeable about our court system. I mean, I wasn't at one time either, but that doesn't prevent you from learning about it. So that's part of my motivation for wanting students to know more about our court system.
I noticed that as part of your public outreach program, the Arkansas Judiciary now has a very strong social media presence. And I know a lot of courts are, kind of concerned about going into this branch. So how are you regulating the accounts, or what exactly is your approach to your social media accounts?
Well, we're using it primarily for informational purposes. We have a public education coordinator who will manage these social media accounts, and she'll propose some different ideas or different content to me. I'll review them and then sign off on what's going to be posted on our accounts. But primarily we use that for informational purposes. We'll post our decisions that the court issues. We'll post different reports about the court system, or at least indicate where you could obtain that information. We also have a 1-minute spot we call Courts and Communities, in which our education coordinator will focus on some aspect of the court system, and usually get our public radio network in Arkansas to run those spots. So we don't allow comments at this time, but that doesn't prevent anybody from sharing that information and then making comments on their own Facebook pages or whatever.
Right. Sure. For these this 1-minute radio spots you were mentioning, what kind of topics have you focused on?
We may focus on someone, maybe the first woman justice on the Supreme Court, or the first African-American judge, or some event in Arkansas that is judicial related or legal related, that's prominent, just either something from history or something current that would pertain to the court system that would give more information that would be helpful to the public.
So, in general, how have all these programs kind of been helpful to the public? So you've been doing them for a while now, and I think the plan is supposed to go on for the next 5 years. Have you seen great benefits, and are you planning on continuing everything after 2025?
We have. In addition to this, we also have tours of the Justice Building. So we've got school groups, we've got different organizations that will come to the Justice Building, and we try to make it a point during the tour to have one justice available or one appellate judge where they can meet with that group. And I think that's a very big benefit, because from the feedback we've received, a lot of times the students or members of the groups are surprised that a justice or a judge is going to meet with them. But I think it's important that we do show, hey, we're just regular people. We're public servants. We want to give you this information so that you'll be more knowledgeable. And it's been helpful. It's been helpful in doing that.
Yeah, I think this is a problem that a lot of judiciaries face, is kind of putting a more human face on an institution that a lot of people don't, interact with so often.
Right. One of the goals we have is to have a Judicial Learning Center. We're hoping to expand our building with the focus being on this Judicial Learning Center, although I think we're going to coordinate that with the other branches, with the executive branch and with the legislative branch as well, and just have a government learning center rather than just a judicial learning center, so that we can provide more education to the public, to students, about our state government system. So that's part of our goal, even beyond this 5-year strategic plan, is to continue that, and hopefully if we can build that learning center, which we are making some good steps toward being able to achieve that, at least start it. If we do that, it may be 2 or 3 years before we actually get it built. But I think it would go a long way in having a spot where the students can come into the state capitol complex. Right now we don't have a specific visitor center, and this would have a focal point. It would also provide safer access, because right now we don't have a good drop-off point for students at the state capitol building. So that would be part of our plans, to have a safe location there to drop off the students, which would be convenient to the Justice Building as well as the state capitol. So that's part of our long-range plans, to facilitate more access to the whole state capitol complex.
It sounds like you've really, put a lot of thought and time and effort into really mapping all of this out.
We have. We formed a task force 2 years ago, right after I became Chief Justice, to develop a strategic plan, which we never had one in Arkansas before. And Arkansas was one of, I think, 12 states that didn't have a strategic plan for their judiciary. So we had all different aspects of the judicial branch represented, from the appellate courts, trial courts, to the clerks, bar associations, and court reporters, and just had input from all these different groups so that we could make the necessary plans to go forward with our judiciary.
Do you have any recommendations for judiciaries that might be considering this kind of long-term planning, or getting ready to undertake public outreach programs? Is there anything that you encountered that you weren't expecting?
I think it's good to have that good overview from all the participants, because being a judge, I've got certain views that I'm interested in and been involved in. But all these other different aspects that I don't even consider, you can get that added to the group dynamics. And it really kind of opened my eyes to different things that made me think outside the box, I guess you'd say, to consider other things strategically as far as planning for the future and what we need to do. So I think get as many people involved in that planning process as possible, so that you can get a broad range of views to make suggestions.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to take the time to
You're
talk
welcome.
with us today.
You're welcome. Glad to.
And for everyone listening, stay tuned for more episodes in the Global Judicial Integrity Network podcast series. Thank you.